Greetings, folks. Today is Friday, March 29th, 2019. I'm Tom Lina-Weaver, and this is a new segment of my commentary entitled, If I Were President. Now, those of you who know me from the past and know me from the recent past, if you got to know me before I started these commentaries, you would have known that I wanted to be president of the United States. In fact, I've written articles to that end, saying if you elect me, this is what would happen. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm not actually running. Now, if by doing this gets me gobs of money and gobs of people to support me, I might change my mind. But I would rather do this, my commentary, whether it's based on the Constitution or something called Christ Matters or whatever else. And more recently, Late Night Weekend, where I just go crazy. I hope you don't mind. Every once in a while, people have to go crazy. Just ask the current occupant of the White House. Although he does it as president. Anyway, okay, listen. You see in the picture that it's the Founding Fathers, or at least an artist's rendition of the Founding Fathers, and they're signing something. I don't know if they were signing the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence, but whatever the case may be, the message of the picture, remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words, the message of the picture that if I were president, I would steer the United States of America toward the founders' vision of America. I would want to get back to what they gave us, a constitutional republic. I would want to get back to constitutional taxation, which, when I say constitutional taxation, I'm not talking about the 16th Amendment. That came later. The taxation we had before the 16th Amendment is what I would be in favor of. By the way, that included tariffs, but I don't think I would like to use tariffs. The fact is, when you look at Article 1, Section 8, and look at the taxes they used, duties imposed and excises, none of them were direct taxation. So I'm opposed to direct taxation. Now, direct taxation is simply taxation taken directly from the people, like the income tax. And that would be unconstitutional were it not for the 16th Amendment. All right. And there are other things. I mean, we need an economy that's based on the gold and silver standard, because that's what the Constitution says. And that's what the founders believed in. Okay? So, the economy would be what I call constitutional economics. Our spending would be in pursuance of the Constitution. Now, am I saying that we should only spend on those things that are listed in Article 1, Section 8? Nope. You see, Article 1, Section 8 was written before the Bill of Rights. And I do believe it is the duty of the federal government to enforce the Bill of Rights. I do that. I believe we should enforce the Second Amendment instead of curtailing it or infringing it. We need to have a court system. We need to support and force the Fourth Fifth and Sixth Amendments to get our court system back under control. So, I swear to you folks, if we went back to the Constitution, this would be a much better country than it is today. Number one, there wouldn't be any foreign aid. Number two, there wouldn't be any domestic aid. So, for those of you who are conservatives and want to get rid of food stamps, let's get back to the Constitution. However, as president, before we get rid of food stamps, I want to make sure there is an alternative. I don't want people to starve. And so, before we end food stamps, there must be an alternative. And what I would do as president is I would work with the states and the churches, because in my understanding, it is the proper responsibility of the churches to take care of the poor. Don't believe me? Read the Bible. Anyway, I have read the Bible. I've studied the Bible. And I do believe that the churches should be taking care of the poor. And if the churches would do what they're supposed to do, the government wouldn't have to. Alright? So, and there's a host of other things. What about foreign policy? Well, we have a faulty foreign policy based on the idea that Israel are God's chosen people. They're not. Again, read the Bible. If we're going to base, I will not have a foreign policy that's based on lies. I will base my foreign policy on truth. And the truth is the Constitution says no foreign aid. Now, what the Constitution does allow is commerce, international and national commerce, well regulated. So, I would like to see what I call mutual trade agreements. In other words, like let's take China for example. Whatever China is allowed to do or not allowed to do, we will reciprocate. For example, I would like to see a trade agreement that says what China wants to sell in the United States, they would also have to build it in the United States. So, if a Chinese company wants to sell something over here, they would have to come over here and set up factories and hire American people so that they have jobs, and then I think everything that's sold in the United States must be made in the United States. Okay? And that's what I would work toward. And at the same time, if we want to sell in China, we have to make it there. Okay? So if we want to sell our cars in China, we have to go over there and buy up their factories and make the cars there. Okay? That is what I call a reciprocal trade agreement. Now, I've heard Donald Trump use that term. Reciprocal. I haven't seen it. If he's leaning toward reciprocal trade agreements, I would not stand in his way. But I'm not seeing it. Okay? I'm not seeing it. So, anyway, I would do my best for the economy to get back to what the Constitution says the economy should be. Alright? Okay. So, now, in the past, we've had various different presidents. And I would probably be a lot like Grover Cleveland. If you want to know about his presidency, look it up. That should be my catchphrase, my signature phrase. Look it up. Because I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, why is why? Look it up. Look up his presidency, and you will see a lot of what mine would be like. Now, especially in economics. The man is known for his many vetoes of spending bills. The man worked on keeping a balanced budget. And so he would veto budgets that would bust the bank, so to speak. I would probably do the same. And, of course, back then, they didn't have spending for a lot of stuff. They didn't have education spending, or they didn't have ATF spending. They didn't have Homeland Security. We had a Department of Defense. We had an Army. But we did not have a Homeland Security. I mean, so any spending that includes unconstitutional spending would be vetoed by me. All right, if I was president. And then if Congress would have to override. And as I understand it, when Grover Cleveland was president, Congress did override his vetoes on several occasions. And so they were able to spend all that money without his approval. All right. So, I mean, he had no choice. The job of the executive branch of government is to enforce what Congress says. The laws that they pass and so forth. Although, I would have a problem with that. Because the oath of office the president takes says, we must preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. Now, how can I could not in all conscience take that oath and then enforce unconstitutional laws. I would ignore unconstitutional laws. Alright? I would ignore them. And if they would send me a bill that would turn into an unconstitutional law, I would veto it. Now that would be my presidency. Basically, it's back to the Constitution. Now, I'm not in a party. Currently, I'm an independent. But were there an American Founders Party, a party whose mission is to return America to the vision of the founders, to what the founders gave us, which includes, by the way, the amending process. So somebody will probably say to me, well, do you want to go back to slavery? No, I don't. The Constitution was amended to end slavery, at least slavery based on race. We still have masters in Washington, and we are basically enslaved by them because little by little they are taking away our freedom, our liberty, and that has to stop. And if I were president, it would stop. So, yes, there's a little bit about what I would like to do if I were president. That's it for my introduction in this segment of my commentary. Thank you for listening.